Welcome to Divorce, Dating, and Empowered Living with your host, Rosalind Sadaka. Join Rosalind each week on a journey toward overcoming life's many challenges to achieve peace, empowerment, and positive transformation. It's time to relax, unwind, and transform your life with Rosalind Sadaka.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is Rosalind Sadaka, divorce and parenting coach, founder of the Child-Centered Divorce Network, and author of How Do I Tell the Kids About the Divorce. You're listening to me on WGSN-DB, the Going Solo Network, and the show is Divorce, Dating, and Empowered Living. Every week we talk about various issues of importance to people, families, women and men who are going through divorce, have transitioned after divorce, are dating and starting over in their life, and also those who are looking to empower themselves to be stronger, more conscious, more aware, and more capable of living a fulfilled and empowered life. So today we're going to focus on one of the aspects of divorce that is very dark and one of the most negative consequences of divorce in many families, and that's parental alienation. And while a lot of people say, well, that doesn't apply to me, I'm not a family experiencing parental alienation, what I wanted to talk to you about today is the subtleties and the many ways that we alienate our children against their other parent, our former spouse, in ways that are so subtle that we may not be recognizing what we're doing. So parental alienation takes many, many forms. In the most extreme form that we see on the headlines and that we hear about is when one parent keeps the other parent from having access to their children, in most cases feeling very justified that the other parent is an unfit parent. And, of course, sadly, in some cases, that's definitely a serious reality. But in other cases, one parent can be very vindictive and just feel that they can use the children as pawns to get back at the parent who hurt them, and so they decide to poison the children against the parent or just force the children not to have a relationship with the parent, in some cases even absconding with the children, kidnapping the children so that they don't ever see the other parent, or moving far enough away so that the other parent has a huge distance problem and doesn't spend as much time with the children. Again, in most cases, one parent feels justified in doing this, and of course the question is that the real reality, and is that the best interest of the children? So we want to look at the fact that 1 out of 4 children are involved in a divorce that undergoes some form of parental alienation. 1 out of 4 children experiences some form of parental alienation, and that's very sad, and it's emotionally scarring for children. Our children deserve better, and what we need to do when we feel justified in hurting our former spouse is remember that when we do that, we are also on several levels hurting our children. So in most cases, or in predominant cases, men are usually the target parent, since in our culture the mother has more often had custody of the children. But I know many cases mothers are being affected as well, and in the opposite. So the so-called alienating parent is the one who has custody and uses it to brainwash the child, turning him or her against the alienated parent. But what I want to talk about today is the more subtle ways that very often divorced parents will use forms of alienation, not to keep the other parent from the child, but just to win over the allegiance and alliance of the children in their favor and getting them to dislike their ex the way they do. So we want to look at that and see if we can be open and honest within ourselves and catch ourselves. Are we doing that? Is that a behavior that we have used? Is it a strategy that we have used to keep the kids on our side and to make the kids as disgusted or annoyed or frustrated with or unhappy with our former spouse as we are? And it's very easy to do that because children are very manipulatable. So I wanted to just ask some questions and see if it may be something that's relevant for you. So in many cases, in the process, the subtle process of alienation, the custodial parent, or even if you're not the custodial parent, even if you're shared parenting, can often make statements such as, if I just told you some more things about your father or your mother, and then just alluding to things that there are dark secrets or there are things that you don't know and you don't understand. Most all professionals agree that we should never share adult information with our children. It's not age appropriate. Even for older teens, they are not fully mentally capable of grasping the complex emotional and psychological issues that are related to divorce. As you could see, adult parents themselves have enough trouble handling that. So when we lay it on our children or try to share information with them, it robs them of their childhood. It suddenly turns them into little adults who are thinking about things that they shouldn't have to think about in the innocence of their childhood. And it's very important for us to understand this and not take advantage of it. So we want to be very careful about alluding, because in those cases they may make the child feel sorry for abandoning them every time he or she visits the alienated parent. So here you have shared custody and your children are going off to visit dad or mom at the appropriate times, but you can play a part in making them feel guilty, in making them feel like they're doing something to you, that you're being abandoned, that you're being left and hurt. And it's so unfair to your children. So while you may not be directly alienating your children against their other parent, it's good to stop from time to time and reflect on the more subtle ways this process can take place. And that's what we want to look at as we move ahead. So one of the first questions you can ask yourself is, do you ever confide in your children negative traits about your ex that frustrate you, knowing that you are influencing their allegiance or positioning yourself as a victim? It's very tempting to position ourselves as victims. We're hurt, and we feel that we are justified in being hurt, and in many cases, we've been dealing with a partner who had an affair or was abusive and disrespectful or is not being responsible to us and to the family. There's no doubt about it that when the divorce decision is made, there's grievances that are real and legitimate, and many of them hurt the children. The question is, do we have the right to keep the children who usually love both parents from having access to both parents? And that's what we want to be reflecting on. So we want to be careful and making sure that we stop and think about these issues before we dive into behaviors that are so tempting and yet are hurting our children in a variety of different ways. And positioning ourselves as a victim often allows our children to feel that they need to step in and parent us. And one of the saddest consequences of divorce is children parenting their parents. Again, it robs them of their childhood. They're no longer having the innocence of childhood and being children, and suddenly they're thinking about your well-being. How are your feelings doing? Are you being hurt? You need to get your support, your condolences, your shoulders to cry on from other adults or from counselors and therapists and coaches, and not from your children, because children were not designed for that. And so take your frustrations out, punch pillows, vent to your friends and to your coach and therapist, but please don't be doing that with your to your children, with your children, because it is harming them on a deep emotional and psychological level. We'll be talking about more facets of this after we take a short break. This is Rosalind Sedaka with the Child-Centered Divorce Network, and you're listening to WGSN-DB, the Going Solo Network. The show is Divorce, Dating, and Empowered Living.
You're listening to WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network, Singles Talk Radio Channel, where we take a lighthearted and candid approach to discussions on the journey of relationship loss, divorce, parenting, being single, relationships building, dating, and yes, sex. Join our listeners and begin living your best life.
Welcome back. This is Rosalind Sedaka with WGSN-DB, the Going Solo Network. You're listening to Divorce, Dating, and Empowered Living. And today we're talking about facets of parental alienation during and long after a divorce, and just exploring some of the questions we may be asking ourselves or should be asking ourselves to make sure that we are not getting our children involved in areas that they have a right not to be put into as parents. So another question to ask yourself is, do you ever put down members in your spouse's family to justify your keeping the children from maintaining a relationship with them? So are you keeping your children from being as close to their other grandparents, their other aunts and uncles or cousins and other family members because they come from the other side, and you have rationalized reasons to dislike them and turn your children against them? It's very sad when children lose half their extended family, especially in the suddenness of a divorce. One year or one Christmas they were all together, and then the next year, the next birthday, they're no longer invited to the party or celebration. Are you thinking this through clearly? Are you making sure you're not doing that? And even if they do get to see the other family members, are you coloring the conversations about them and tainting it in some way where these people are being put down as being not as loving, not as warm, not as caring as the people in your family? It's a question that we need to ask ourselves deep down inside, and that's what we're trying to do here. We're just trying to reflect and make sure that we are being as conscious and aware as possible through our parenting as divorced parents, which is a difficult, very difficult situation, but we don't want to lay other levels of challenge and difficulty, shame, blame, guilt, and confusion on our children. Another question to reflect on is, do you ever try to make your kids feel guilty when they want to spend time with their other parents? And as a result, maybe playing up your own needs and your own significance in their lives and putting down the value of their other parents. Again, there are so many subtle ways of doing this. There are ways of constantly finding excuses where they can't make the appointments that they were supposed to have to see the other parent, or you're changing the times, or you're making it more difficult for dad or mom to pick up the children or take them away on a short holiday or vacation. And making your kids feel guilty if they say they enjoyed spending time with their other parent confuses them, puts in a tremendous emotional burden on them. And what usually happens is that they stop sharing with you and confiding in you. And so they tell you what you want to hear, what they think you need to hear and want to hear, even if it isn't the truth. And suddenly they have an inner life that that's secret, that they can't share with you because they're afraid that you're going to be angry at them. Think of the position children are put in when they're torn between mom and dad telling them negative things about one another. going from one side to the other, and in all cases feeling guilty or shamed or confused or blamed about this. These are all forms of alienation that very often people don't realize. And it affects your child's psychological vulnerability. It also affects sibling dynamics because one sibling may feel differently about mom or dad than the other and create greater conflict between the divorced parents. And it explains why children will frequently not only reject one parent and also their family and close friends around them because they're trying to do what they feel is right so not to hurt you. And what are the consequences for them? We have to remember that grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, and as well as the new partner of your former spouse can easily be affected by children who expel them from their life. And it's easy for children to do that because they're trying not to hurt you. They're trying to protect you. They're trying not to see you feeling vulnerable. And are you doing that? Is that a form of manipulation? So this is a very difficult and challenging issue. It's hard to unravel the family dynamic when parental alienation takes roots. And we need to keep in mind that when children grow into adulthood, they often come to resent the alienating parent and may change their affiliation. So suddenly in their 20s and 30s, they may think back on situations, things you said and did, things you didn't do, and come to resent you for it or be angry. And you can risk an outcome that you don't want to experience later on. So yes, when they're young, you can manipulate and coerce them and move them in the direction you want, but your children are going to grow old and make you accountable. And the greatest gift in my life was when my son was in his early 20s, and he said to me one day out of the blue, you know, Ma, you and Dad did a really good job with the divorce. I just want to thank you because most of my friends whose parents divorced either hate their parents or are really angry about a lot of things, and I just don't feel that way, so thank you. And that, I just let out a huge sigh of relief and said, wow, thank God, because I was carrying so much guilt for so many years. So I want you to have that outcome as well, the outcome of feeling that you did a good job throughout your co-parenting years, which is the rest of your life, because we never stop being a parent. And make an honest evaluation of your own parenting messages, the direct messages and the more subtle messages that you present to your children, and then take the initiative to correct, adjust, or change any behaviors that are not serving the best interests of your children now or in the future. And I know that's a tall order, but it's something to reflect on, and if you need help and support, I certainly do one-on-one personal coaching by phone or Skype. There are other professionals out there who do coaching as well. And, of course, there are therapists and counselors and support groups. So get the help and support you need. I have a lot of information on this topic and other topics related to divorce and parenting at childcentereddivorce.com. My name is Rosalind Sadaka, and you can reach me at rosalindwrites@gmail.com. That's ROSALINDWRITES@gmail.com. And I have several books, courses, and programs in addition to personal coaching that I offer you if you're interested in that level of support. Just click on the coaching button at childcentereddivorce.com and you'll find them all there. Until next time, wishing you peace, love, joy, and a life of fulfillment. This is Rosalind Sadaka with WGSN-DB, the Going Solo Network, and the Divorce, Dating, and Empowered Living Show. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye for now.